The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Wrestling with Johners, part of episode 221. So many episodes, I've nearly lost count there, and a proud member of the Johners Podcasting Network. Going to go straight to and introduce our guest for this special Royal Rumble review, DDJ. Dennis, from What Do You Say with DDJ podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well. Don't forget, I also am one third of the crew that of the Shooting Shit podcast, which you can catch every week. What Do You Say with DDJ is still on a bit of a hiatus as I try to figure out what to do with that show and stuff. But definitely check us out. We are I co-host the show along with my buddies, the Premier Joey K and the Hot One Jay Manacho. We go live we don't go live, excuse me. We put a new episode up once a week if possible, and we're also part of the Johners Podcasting Network.
That's awesome and great to have you on the show. It's been a long time, it seems, since we last had you on the show. But we're going to be talking about the 2022 WWE Royal Rumble, which took place on Saturday night, which was a bit of a change. Usually pay-per-views are on the Sunday evening, and probably better for us over in the UK because we could watch it in the wee hours of Sunday morning without having to worry about getting up for work the following day. But there's been a lot of mixed reviews about this year's Royal Rumble, DDJ, and we'll get into all of it. There's been a lot of some positives, dare I say it, quite a few negatives about this year's results and the winners of the various matches. So we will get into it. But one thing I do want to mention, and it's a positive note, and unlike last year when they performed the Royal Rumble in front of no fans, it was in the Thunderdome, wasn't it? In front of all them TV screens with all the faces watching from home. This time they're in St. Louis in the Dome, 44,000 plus people there. Absolutely fantastic, and quite a crowd that really seemed to bring a great atmosphere to the show from the very beginning.
Absolutely, it just from the moment the WWE went back to performing in front of live crowds, which I believe the first show was a SmackDown or something, but then they did Money in the Bank was like their first pay-per-view. In front of a live crowd, and it really, and this is something I've been saying since the onset of the pandemic, until we really had the crowd taken away from us, a lot of people really didn't know how vital the crowd is to watching a wrestling show on television. I mean, like I remember tuning into Raw, like when the pandemic really got bad and they went to the Performance Center and they're performing in front of nobody, seeing that WrestleMania in front of nobody. Then they went to the Thunderdome. It was something, but it's just when they went back to the live crowds, it's just you can't really put on a great show without a crowd because the crowd is such a huge part of the show.
Absolutely. And the crowd in St. Louis, they were hot. They were hot 2 nights ago, 44,000 plus. So let's get into it. But first of all, for anybody watching or listening live at home via YouTube, Facebook Live or Twitch, get in touch. Tell us what you thought of this year's edition of Royal Rumble. What did you like? What did you dislike? Were there any matches that you preferred? And what did you think of some of the outcomes and some of the results, some of the winners as we officially head onto the road to this year's WrestleMania? But DDJ, we're going to start with the opening match. And not many people would have thought that the Universal Championship would have opened the show. But they do say if you're not going to close the show, you might as well open the show to get that initial buzz, that initial reaction. And 44,000 people saw the fantastic entrance from Roman Reigns, of course. 44,000 people got the Shield entrance completely unexpected. Seth Rollins coming down in the black boots, the black flak jacket, did the roll over the barrier like he did back in the Shield days. The Shield music, the crowd popped, I popped. I'm sure everybody at home popped as well. That was absolutely amazing. And, you know, with his new kind of slightly crazy persona, he did kind of laugh as he kind of stood in amongst the fans and put his arms up in the air. But absolutely fantastic. I love this match. It went about 15 minutes. Lots of offense backwards and forwards. I'm just going to go through some notes here because for a lot of people's money, it was probably the best match of the night, certainly the best kind of individual match. But like I say, great entrances. We were surprised by the Shield entrance. Even Pat McAfee on commentary mentioned Seth, Roman, and Mox. He actually mentioned Mox. He didn't say Dean Ambrose. So that was something else that I popped for. So that was fantastic. Let's hope Vince McMahon wasn't listening too closely behind the scenes. But Seth starts the match with some big dives through the ropes to really start this really, really great match off to a flying start, quite literally. And then we get a shield bomb. So Seth power bombs or shield bombs Roman through one of the announce desks at ringside. We then thought there was going to be an early finish when we see a buckle bomb from Seth, followed by a curb stomp for a very, very close near fall. And we're barely 5 minutes into this match. The tide of the match did turn in the favor of Roman, with him hitting some big moves, including a Superman punch for another close near fall. Seth shows why he's the visionary, being able to turn a spear into a pedigree for a very close near fall once again. The fans were very heavily behind Seth. Like I say, a lot of people have been a bit up in the air as to whether to boo Seth or cheer Seth. They were very firmly behind him on Saturday night. They traded blows in the center of the ring, and the match came to an end when Roman clamped on a guillotine in the center of the ring. Seth clawed and scratched his way to the ropes. He managed to grab hold of the ropes just before he passed out, and Roman wouldn't release the hold. The referee counted to 5, called for the bell, disqualification. Seth Rollins wins the match via disqualification, but doesn't walk away with the championship. After the match, Roman goes wild with the steel chair and gets booed quite literally out of the ring while Seth kind of lays there. So I think he kind of very firmly became the babyface in that match and a babyface going forward. But a really, really hot opener. I'd say I would certainly consider this the best of the singles matches, the individual matches outside of the Rumbles matches of the night, DDJ. But I'd love to know your thoughts.
I'm going to take what you just said a step further. Not only was it the best of the non-Rumble matches, it was also my favorite match of the night, including the Rumble matches. I just was, from the beginning with the Shield entrance, which I popped for. I'm sitting there watching it in the living room with my wife, and of course, my wife, who's not a wrestling fan, you know, just kind of like, I was like, I see you cheering, and all I see is, you know, wah, 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 wah. You know, she doesn't understand, but I get it and stuff. But I popped for it. I'm sure, like, obviously the crowd popped for it. I really love the build that went into this match. It just from when you go back to SmackDown when Rollins knocked on the door, he did the sheet, knocked in the the theme of the Shield, and then just the build up for that, and they just played off the history, and then the face off that they had on SmackDown the night before, and I think to me that this really kind of hit home, or it's just like, okay, I have to see this match. Is when Roman says, "I hate you for what you did to us," harkening back to when he hit Roman in the back with the chair, when the Shield broke up back in 2014 and stuff. But I mean, just seeing, you got the picture up on the screen there with Rollins, and we're seeing some picture highlights of the show. But I mean, it was just, I really am starting to buy in on this version of Seth Rollins. It's taken me a while because I just feel like he's just got something with this. I wasn't thrilled with the DQ finish, but I thought about it, and it's kind of more of a way to kind of keep the streak that Rollins, is always beating Roman. Like, Roman can't beat Rollins, but
I'll tell you what it does, DDJ. I'll tell you what it does. Very reminiscent of the kind of double turn at WrestleMania 13, Bret Hart, Stone Cold. Like I say, Bret Hart wouldn't release that hold. Obviously turned him heel and turned Stone Cold face. In this instance, Roman was already the heel, but I think it was kind of designed to maybe cement Seth as a bigger babyface going forward, especially leading into WrestleMania.
Yeah. And it also cemented, I think, Roman as a heel even further, because you alluded
True.
to the heat that he was getting. He was getting heat going into the match, but the heat that he got when he wouldn't let go of the hold, it is reminiscent of WrestleMania 13. You know, I was actually at that show, so I got to see the double turn live and stuff, you know, and and I mean, going back and watching it, it was just pure booze for Brett. You know, this time it's pure booze for Roman, which is what he wants to do. But I mean, obviously we're going to get into it a little bit later, but Roman wasn't done for the night.
No, absolutely not. We do see another appearance from Roman a bit later on. But if you haven't seen it and you're relying on this podcast review to get your kind of feed and your feel for this year's Royal Rumble, then we won't spoil it just yet, will we, TDJ? But match number 2 of the card. It was the first of 2 Royal Rumble matches, this time the 30 women Royal Rumble match. Amazingly, Sasha Banks, the boss, who made a return on SmackDown only the night before on Friday, came out number 1. Number 2 was, dare I say it, legend of the Divas division, Melina, who came in with a fantastic entrance. Red carpet, and split into the ring and all the things she does. But she was soon eliminated by Sasha. Tamina came out number 3. Kelly came out number 4, but she was soon eliminated by Sasha. Aaliyah came out number 5. And Liv Morgan, crowd favorite, soon followed. We even see a 3 amigos from Sasha on Aaliyah, which is pretty good. Obviously, she's a huge fan of Eddie Guerrero, as we all are. Queen Zelina comes out number 7. And then in probably the most shocking elimination of this match and possibly of the night, Tamina hoists Sasha onto the ring apron. Queen Zelina comes along and kicks Sasha Banks to the floor to eliminate her. She would have been one of the firm favorites in many people's eyes, came in number 1, but she was eliminated fairly quickly, which is quite controversial. We'll probably talk about that in a minute, DDJ. Bianca Belair comes out and at number 8, Dana Brooke at number 9, and Michelle McCool number 10. Sonya Deville comes out at number 11, followed by Natalia, and then Cameron from the Funkadactyls, if you can remember that act. And one half of the Funkadactyls, along with Naomi, of course. Naomi was, in fact, out next, and she tears straight into Sonya Deville and eliminates Sonya in very quick fashion. Of course, they've got a few going on SmackDown at the moment. Carmella is out next, followed by another hot favorite from the crowd, Rhea Ripley, another fan favorite there, who's promptly eliminates Queen Zelina and Carmella all in one go. Before the current women's SmackDown champion, the Queen herself, Charlotte Flair, comes out at number 17. We see Ivory, who cuts a promo on all of the women in the ring, calling them so-called lost girls in the ring, before being very quickly eliminated herself by Rhea Ripley. And then we get Brie Bella. She comes out to 44,000 yes chants. Of course, she is the wife of Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, for you AEW fans. And then the roof came off when Impact women's world champion, dare I say, Mickie James, came out to her Impact theme with the Impact world title around her waist, looking absolutely fantastic. Comes out and she had a fairly strong rumble of her own. She very quickly, in fact, eliminates a fierce rival from the Diva days, Michelle McCool. Alicia Fox is out next, followed by Nikki Ash, who enters from the Timekeeper's table, or from behind the Timekeeper's table, and attempts to eliminate her former tag team partner, Rhea Ripley. Summer Rae comes out next, who promptly gets flattened by a big boot from Charlotte Flair before being eliminated. Nikki Bella is out next, followed by the return of Sarah Logan. She is eliminated by both Bellas, so the Bellas teaming up there. The Bellas then eliminate Liv Morgan, so another kind of hot favorite for the match, being eliminated by a former Divas champion. Lita is out next at number 26. She quickly eliminates Mickie James. And then we get Molly Holly out at number 27, but she gets flattened at ringside by Nikki ASH. So you've got the two superheroes, or almost superheroes, I should say, going at it there. So that was quite a good moment. Then we see the return of Ronda Rousey. Now, there was a lot of talk before this match, DDJ, about Ronda Rousey coming back, a firm favourite of mine. And in fact, I'm going to prove it because I've got my Ronda Rousey t-shirt on there. So I, for one, was looking forward to a Ronda return. I didn't quite think it was going to happen, but we were all pleased to see that Ronda did, in fact, come out to probably the biggest pop of the night. Shotzi comes out at 29. Shayna Baszler comes out at 30. The star power in this ring in the last 5 or 10 minutes is pretty phenomenal, to be honest with you. But then we get Charlotte eliminating Rhea Ripley. The final 4 is down to Charlotte, Bianca Belair, Shayna Baszler, and Ronda Rousey. Charlotte eliminates both Bianca and Shayna, leaving it to just Charlotte Flair and Ronda as the final 2. And Ronda dumps out the SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair, the Queen herself, over the top rope to win the 2022 Royal Rumble. So the last time we saw Ronda Rousey was WrestleMania a couple of years ago, wasn't it? Just before the pandemic, in MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, New York, and that was a hell of an occasion. When Becky Lynch won that fantastic triple threat in the main event that year. In my opinion, DDJ, too many divas. I think probably half of the entrants in this year's Women's Royal Rumble were from the 2010s, the Horrible Divas bouts and the Horrible Divas era. And quite a few of those divas legends, dare I say, actually got the better of some of the current roster members, which is quite grinding, to be honest with you, when you kind of think that you've got, the likes of Liv Morgan being eliminated so early on, and Sasha Banks being eliminated so early on, and the Bellas kind of doing actually quite well, but you don't want to see the Bellas do well. You want to see, our heroes of 2022 do well. And but it is what it is. You've got Ronda Rousey going on to WrestleMania. But let me know your thoughts on the match. Give us your thoughts on kind of how many divas there were in there. Obviously, we've had a lot of releases in the last 12 to 18 months, especially from the women's division in NXT and WWE. And that was evident with the amount of so-called legends that were in this match.
Yeah, kind of the first thing I want to touch on was what you talked about there being too many divas. To me, this was a perfect. This is kind of basically show just how thin the main roster's women division is on both Raw and SmackDown overall. That you have to rely on, we'll just say roughly about half of your field being having been active in the anywhere from the late 90s, such as the case was with Ivory, even though she didn't last long, which, by the way, I popped for her right to censor entrance. I thought that was great.
100%. I thought that was good, yeah.
And then you have, like Melina, who was in the mid 2000s, early 2010s. I mean, obviously she's still very active, especially in the NWA. But then you mentioned names like, Michelle McCool, who still looks amazing, still looks like she could go today. You mentioned the Bellas, who I get it. Like I kind of liked how they how they played the heels when they prevented that, because you kind of wanted to see that little reunion in the ring with Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan going back to their days as part of the Riot Squad, but then the Bellas playing spoilers and kind of busting out the, their little heelish tendencies and stuff. I actually got a kick out of it.
Kelly couldn't even hit the ropes properly. How is she in there ahead of I'm guessing that all of the current roster were part of that Rumble, but you've got some excellent NXT talent on 2.0.
Exactly.
That could have been there. Getting a bit of recognition, a bit of name for themselves, and to have the TV product as well. It'd have been a great advert for the TV product.
And if NXT is what it used to be in terms of the fact that it's not NXT 2.0, if it's still the black and gold, we probably would have seen more of a presence from NXT in both this and also the men's Rumble. But I mean, you have you've got some women there in NXT 2.0 that are ready for the main roster. You've got Dakota Kai,
Raquel Gonzalez. What about Raquel Gonzalez? Kaylee Ray, for example.
Kaylee Ray, yeah, they have the talent. They've got the talent that they could have put in there to at least give them a showcase, because they do have a few women that are ready. But like I said, this match said it said anything more. The thing it said most is that the women's divisions on the main roster are just way too thin, but kind of I popped for the Mickie James, with they used her Impact, hardcore country theme. She came out with the belt, was really cool. And she had a decent showing and stuff, but I mean, and then, with obviously you mentioned Ronda Rousey, who, like you mentioned, there was a lot of talk the last couple of days picking up that she was going to be there. And now if you read all the dirt sheets and everything, that was the plan the whole time and stuff, but I mean, I Ronda winning and there's going to be the people out there that are going to be like, okay, this is just someone who's a part-timer coming in, taking a main event WrestleMania spot at the expense of someone who's full-time. You know what though? At the end of the day, it's all about the money. It's all about the numbers and the buy rates and everything. And people don't seem to remember. They've got to sell out 2 nights of WrestleMania in a stadium that seats over 100,000 people. And as much as we want to see like the Liv Morgans, the Bianca Belairs, who Bianca was my pick to win the Rumble. But they want to see them, they want to see, like the Shotzi's or whatever. No disrespect to any of those women.
They're not ready yet, are they? They're not ready yet. Yeah,
they're not ready yet, but also too, they're not going to sell out a 100,000 seat arena. No. If any single woman was going to sell out a 100,000 seat arena, it was going to be Ronda Rousey. So that's why I don't have an issue with Ronda winning.
She adds star power and credibility.
Absolutely.
And she demonstrated this. Although she came from the world of MMA, she demonstrated that she adapted to pro wrestling very, very well. And she demonstrated that from her very first match at WrestleMania 34. And then throughout, I don't think she had many bad matches. And she carried a lot of people to some of their best matches, dare I say it, not at Nia Jax. But she does add star power. She does add credibility. She's great behind the microphone, and she's kick-ass in the ring, and so she brings all of that. And like you say, if she's in one of the headline matches this year's WrestleMania, she will put bums in seats, most definitely. But
also too, if I can interject one quick thing,
go for it.
One of the things that why I don't have an issue with this, Ronda's a fan. Like, Ronda respects the business. I mean, her name, Rowdy Ronda Rousey. She went to Piper's family to get the blessing. Like, I believe the jacket she had on, I believe that was Piper's jacket that she had gifted by, to her by Roddy's wife. I mean, a lot of people think Ronda's a part-timer. When she was there, she worked a full-time schedule. She was there every week for TV. She wasn't like, God, I'm going to come back here for 1 week and then I'm going to take 2 weeks off or anything like this. She was there every week and stuff. So, and from what I've been seeing, Ronda's going to be, working a full-time schedule during her duration here. And I kind of think one of the things that I really liked about Ronda in the Rumble was when her music played and the crowd went crazy, literally every single woman in that ring at the time stopped what they were doing and looked towards the way to see her coming, because they knew business was about to pick up. And I think that really did a lot for, to enhance the, the badass, character that Ronda portrays, because, you got like about 6-7 women in the ring who just all of a sudden stopped, took a look in the ring and kind of, were like, oh, we are in trouble.
Yeah, 100%. And we've had a comment come through from one of our live viewers, harking back to the opener, the show opener. Yes, Roman and Seth was golden and they need another match. Yep. Obviously, we got the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view coming from Saudi Arabia in February. And there's usually kind of an in-between pay-per-view between that and Mania. Yeah. I don't know whether we'll have one this year. I'm not sure if their schedule, something like a fast lane
I think this is going, from what I understand, that this is going to be the pay-per-view, or what they call now premium live event.
You got it.
between now and WrestleMania. I don't think they have anything planned after this because it's going to have the Elimination Chamber, which normally had its own pay-per-view.
So I mean, looking at the Facebook user that sent in a message, are we likely to see another showdown between Seth and Roman? Is that feud done? And you know, is there a possibility that that we could see Seth in a championship match at Mania?
Well, if we're seeing, I've got a theory on that because I was thinking about the what Seth is going to be doing at Mania while I was, you know, getting myself cleaned up and getting ready to come on here. I do think we're going to see another match just because the way that match ended, to me, that's not how you end a feud. And it would not surprise me if we see on Friday Night SmackDown that they announced that Roman, you know, and Seth have a rematch at the Elimination Chamber show in Saudi Arabia. I think that's what we're going to see because it was just, I know it was announced just a couple hours ago that Bobby Lashley is going to be, well, excuse me, I don't want to spoil it yet. So it's Bobby. I just showed that Bobby Lashley is going to be involved. What he's going to be doing, we'll talk about a little bit later. And stuff. But
he's going to be on Raw, though, isn't he? He's going to be on Raw.
He's going to be on Raw.
Message on Raw.
And stuff. But yeah, just kind of going back to the comment there. Yeah, the feud's not over with, and I would not be surprised to see these two go at it one more time. Coming up at if not this Elimination Chamber show in Saudi Arabia, we'll see it on an episode of SmackDown sometime in the near future.
Absolutely. But before we continue, DDJ, I've got to throw a quick sponsors plug to our wonderful sponsors, 1310 Apparel, who not only sponsor this very podcast, Wrestling with Johners, but sponsor the whole of the Johners podcasting network, of which DDJ is a proud member of course. And if you go over to their store on their Wrestle Merch Central store, you can see their fantastic Lucha range. They've got an awesome hardcore line as well, and their more traditional 1310 and Four Corners apparel also. They do sponsor some tremendous wrestlers and performers throughout the UK wrestling circuit, such as Heidi Katrina, for example, Northwest Strong's Chris Ridgway, and of course, on their big cartel store and their global store at WrestleMania Central, you can see their exclusive Heidi Katrina shirts. Now, you can get 10% off by being a listener of Wrestling with Johners and the Johners Podcasting Network by going over to their global store at WrestleMerch Central. Simply visit 1310.merch.global or click in the link to the description of this podcast, whether you're watching the audio or the video version. And at checkout, to save yourself 10%, use the discount code 1310WMC. That's 1310WMC at checkout to save yourself 10%. And just click in the link to the description of this podcast that will take you straight there. So, DDJ, thank you for kind of pointing to the address there. A big help there. But let's have a look at the next match then. And it was for the WWE Raw Women's Championship, big time Becky Lynch against Doudrop. Now, in my heart, big fan of Doudrop. Loved her as Piper Niven, loved her as Viper over here in the UK scene and ICW and all that. And even if, regardless of the outcome before this match, she was a winner in my eyes because she was in a major championship match to quite possibly the second biggest WWE show of the whole year, in front of 44,000 people. Her heart must have been bursting with pride. I know her friends and family at home must have been bursting with pride. I think she went on the record and said that this was undoubtedly the biggest match of her career. And I think she absolutely smashed it, to be honest with you. But just to get into some of the highlights of the match, Doudrop, she misses a rolling cannonball on the outside into the steel step, which appears to have injured her right leg. However, this is where the kind of attention of the fans turned from watching the championship match, because if you remember, Ronda Rousey, when she won, there was fireworks, the WrestleMania sign, but there appeared to be a fire in the dome, where the WrestleMania sign was on fire. So the fans completely turned their attention from the match and was watching the WrestleMania sign, which was apparently on fire. They didn't show it on camera. I haven't seen any clips or any pictures yet, but that it looked pretty normal towards the end of it. So I'm sure they managed to control that. However, when the fans did turn their attention back to the match. There was a spot that we've seen many times before where Doudrop, she drops her full weight onto the body of her opponent, in this case Becky Lynch. Just showed it back a few times. It did look like Doudrop landed with full force onto the body of the champ there, and it looked like it sucked big time for Becky Lynch. This was followed up by a huge power bomb and a successful rolling cannonball, this time into the corner, but both could only get a 2 count on those occasions. Becky got a close near fall of her own from a Molly go round, which was pretty cool to see. Especially because we had Molly Holly in the Royal Rumble earlier on, and a guillotine leg drop with Doudrop draped between the middle and top rope. Becky Lynch did eventually get the victory, however, DDJ, with an impressive manhandle slam from the middle rope down to the canvas. 1, 2, 3. I've got to be honest with you. I enjoyed the hell out of this match. I thought it was fantastic. I might have been slightly biased because Doudrop was in it and big fan of hers. Also like Becky Lynch, but I think the two women in this match performed really, really well, worked their asses off, some great moves, some impactful moves as well. Doudrop wasn't holding anything back at all. Some of the offense was absolutely fantastic, very impactful. Becky Lynch, I personally think Becky Lynch had a great match. I've got to be honest with you, some Becky Lynch matches can be a little bit clunky. Sometimes that depends on who she's in the ring with. But this match I thought was fantastic. Really good match for Doudrop. Really good match for Becky Lynch. And that's just my opinion. What about yourself?
It was a good match. I'm sure the nerves had to be getting to Doudrop, which, for the record, I just wish they would drop the Doudrop name and let her go back to being Piper Niven. But again, it goes back to the whole, them wanting to own the rights to the character. We talked about with, off camera, we were talking about the name change with Walter.
Gunther.
Yeah, Gunther and stuff. And it's kind of the same line. So I get why. But yeah, no, she, for this being her first big match, she had a really good showing. And I just hope this isn't a case of for Doudrop. Okay, you had your turn. Now get to the back of the line, or
I think she's proved herself now. I think she's proved herself, and I think that with her outing on Saturday night, I think she's going to kind of be there or thereabouts. So. She's been featured for a long time now, and I think they trust her and they can rely on her to go out there and put on a great performance. So she definitely didn't disappoint.
But one thing that this match kind of suffered from, and we see it all the time. You have like a big match that, or something happened in the previous match that everybody's into. You talk with Ronda showing up and winning the Women's Royal Rumble, or you have like the case of just when you have a really hot match that the crowd's really into. There comes a point where they're tired for the next match, and it just felt like. With that, and then also with you talked about the WrestleMania sign catching fire and distracting the crowd, but it just felt like that this match was kind of like one of those matches that's like, oh, I gotta follow that, and the women went out there and did what they could, but just I think the crowd was just so tired from the previous match, and it's just this was kind of just that match that unfortunately kind of had to serve the purpose of being like the filler, or just the match where the crowd needed to kind of catch their breath or collect themselves to kind of get themselves ready for what was still to come.
I do think that they got the crowd back eventually. I think that because I noticed how quiet they were, and especially when the WrestleMania sign was on fire and their attention was drawn elsewhere in the dome. But after that, and I noticed that they did turn their attention back to the match, and the two women in that match, I think they did manage to pull the fans back in towards the ends, and certainly the action was good enough to do that.
I 100% agree. I was kind of like perplexed that they decided to go with heel for the women's title on a pay-per-view, but I mean for what it was, the women, they did a very commendable job.
Absolutely. And I, for one, want to see, just like you do, DDJ, more of Doudrop on our TV screens in the pay-per-views. I think she definitely deserves it. Definitely deserves it. And as we established, there's a lot of conversation out there regarding Walter's name change. And but if you're talented enough, and if you kind of really invest yourself in what WWE want you to be as a performer, regardless of name or otherwise, and you really put yourself out there and you dedicate yourself to what the company is after from you, you will be pushed. I think as soon as you start kind of, sour grapes and all that, it's like, well, I don't like this, or I'm going to go and have a moan on Twitter. That's when the company, quite rightly so, is going to think, well, can we trust and can we invest in this person? I think Piper Niven Doudrop has done everything right since the moment she went up onto the main roster. I think that's why she's getting her rewards now by having these championship matches, and I think she deserves every moment. And yes, I honestly believe before the end of 2022, she will have a run with the championship,
I hope so.
regardless of whether it be a short or a long reign. I honestly think because they reward people that have the work ethic and the right mindset, such as a Piper Niven Doudrop, so that she will be rewarded, I'm sure, for her hard work. And I really enjoyed this match, and I think that those two should be very, very proud of their performance, considering everything else going on in that building that night. But any final thoughts on that championship match?
I gotta admit, I kind of liked how they played the fact that Becky couldn't get her up for the manhandle slam, but she was able to muster up when they went on the second turnbuckle to do it and stuff. Again, I think that kind of definitely got a good size pop from the crowd. Just to see Becky do that to get the 1, 2, 3. So
yeah, and I just want to bring this picture up again. That senton. Wow.
Yeah.
That Becky did well to kind of, recover as well as she did. She didn't really show any signs of being hurt or anything like that. But they replayed that a few times and that landed with full force. But and to be fair, both girls, that they laid it in and they really did put on an amazing performance for sure. Let's talk about the next match then. And it is, of course, for the WWE Championship. Current champion going into the show, Brock Lesnar versus former WWE champion Bobby Lashley, of course, the almighty one. So on commentary, they called it a match 20 years in the making. Slight exaggeration, but it certainly is in many people's eyes a dream match that we've been waiting for many, many years, especially with their kind of sporting background, both being MMA fighters. Of course, Bobby with Bellator, Brock Lesnar being a former UFC world champion, of course. Their sporting credentials, their reputation of being absolute badasses. But let's go through some of the highlights then, DDJ. So both men, they trade German suplexes, both men kind of brushing off the German suplexes to start off with. Lashley avoided an attempted F5 from Lesnar before nailing 2 huge spears of his own in the ring. Lashley then misses a third spear, or an attempted spear, crashing himself through the barriers at ringside. With Brock Lesnar cleverly avoiding that one. Lashley then misses Lesnar with, I've mentioned about the barrier spots. Both men are trading big moves back inside the ring. Lesnar broke out of Lashley's hurt lock full Nelson before drilling Lashley with an F5, unfortunately knocking the referee out in the process. And then in all the confusion that's going on with the referee being out, Roman Reigns enters the ring off camera. We don't know he's there. Nails Brock Lesnar with an almighty spear. And then what happens next is Paul Heyman on the outside, clutching Brock's WWE Championship. Hand delivers the championship belt to Roman Reigns to hit Lesnar across the head, and then he's out of here, and then before you know it, Lashley's in the ring, covers 1, 2, 3. We have a brand new WWE champion, a 2-time champion in Bobby Lashley. So quite a controversial end that have got a lot of people talking, DDJ. But one thing it did tell us is that the storyline involving Paul Heyman, wasn't he? First of all, he was the counsel to the tribal chief, and now he was the advocate to the beast incarnate. It looks like he showed his true colors, and he was kind of playing us all along, and certainly playing Brock Lesnar all along. and he's back in full allegiance with Roman Reigns coming out of this pay-per-view, and Brock Lesnar drops his title to the Almighty One. But give us your thoughts.
So I like the result. I like the fact that they put the title on Lashley, because I felt like, he had a really good first run with the championship, and I feel like he deserved to have another run, and hopefully he has another really good run with this championship. And I kind of alluded to this earlier when we were talking about Roman versus Seth, about the heat that Roman got, the heat that Roman got, and the heat that Heyman got when they not saying a word. Roman holds out his hand. Heyman hands him the title. The crowd was just booing him out of the building. They didn't say one word. Just that little action just got so much heat for them. And I'm sitting at home thinking, I'm just like, wow. And, but I don't like the fact that they went with this for the finish, just because of the fact that I feel like it kind of diminished the win for Lashley a little bit. I think if they could have easily done, something where Lashley beat him legit, because that would have done a lot more for Lashley than him picking up the win the way he did. But it gets us to, it gets us to the point now. We know, okay, this is how they're getting to Brock versus Roman for, the main event of WrestleMania. Probably going to be the main event of night 2. That's probably going to be the very last match of the weekend, because it's probably going to have the biggest story going into it and stuff, but congrats to Lashley on getting the championship back. Be anxious to see what his plans are for, WrestleMania. And obviously now we know that, if you're listening to this, Lashley's the champion. So now I can kind of go back to, we talked about Lashley a little bit earlier, was announced earlier today. He's going to be defending the championship in the Elimination Chamber match at the show in Saudi Arabia. So I'm sure we're going to find out later tonight on Raw, or in your case, sometime Tuesday morning or whenever, because I think does Raw air live over there with you in the UK?
It does on BT Sports. Yes, it does.
Okay. So in that case, it'll probably be very late Monday night or early Tuesday morning for you and stuff. You guys will find out. We'll find out.
We're used to that over in the UK. We always get the weird time slots.
Yeah. But the match was what I expected it to be. It's just two big men, just throwing suplexes and, kind of just being just a hard hitting match, and stuff. So, I
think that's when Brock's at his best as well. Brock's at his best when he's just throwing his opponents around, and when they're as good as and as big as Bobby Lashley, and he is throwing Brock Lesnar around. You've got two big monsters, big beasts. It's like King Kong and Godzilla, isn't it?
Yeah, and also too, but Brock can have a good match with a smaller guy as well too. We saw it a few years ago at Survivor Series when he wrestled AJ Styles.
And Daniel
and
Bryan.
The following year with Daniel Bryan, Finn Balor at a Rumble a couple years ago and stuff. He can have a good match with the smaller guy as well too. But kind of one of the things I wanted to say about this is this kind of plays into something that I've said a few months back. I feel like on my show Shooting Shit, one of the topics we talked about when Brock came back was who needs Heyman more. Is it Roman or is it Brock? And to me, I felt like the Roman Reigns, especially his character now, needs Paul Heyman more than Brock does. And if anything, these last couple weeks that Brock has been on TV has shown is that Brock is more than capable of, being on his own with the promos he's cut.
He's doing the best work of his career, I think.
Absolutely. And I think this was the right, way to go to put Heyman back with, Roman. And I just thought about this too, when, because originally, we know that Brock and Roman were supposed to go at it at day one, but then unfortunately, Roman was sick with COVID and they had to go the route they did with putting, the title on Brock. It makes me wonder if this was that match was supposed to play out, where maybe, Heyman was going to hand the title to Roman while the ref was down and they were going to just do it then. If this was the ending we were supposed to get at day one, we'll never know, unfortunately. But obviously we do know that, it's inevitable that these two are going to go at it on at WrestleMania, and it's just going to be really interested to see where they go with the story.
Absolutely. I just want to say a couple of things before we move on to our next match.
Mm-hmm.
The storyline involving the Bloodline, the Tribal Chief, and of course Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar. It's been a fantastic storyline. It really has. Lots of will he, won't he, guesswork, backwards and forwards. And of course, Paul Heyman has played a blinder, going from Roman Reigns to Brock Lesnar and then completely deceiving Brock Lesnar to go back to his Tribal Chief. And it looked like it was all a ruse all along, and that Paul Heyman was just working Brock Lesnar. And like you say, Brock Lesnar, with his character work, his promo work over recent weeks, doesn't really need a mouthpiece such as Paul Heyman, whereas he did before. So Paul Heyman is much better suited with Roman Reigns. Not that Roman Reigns needs a mouthpiece, but I just think that combination is just money, to be honest with you, as far as I'm concerned, and completes the package of Roman Reigns when you think of what Roman Reigns has become over the last couple of years. Bobby Lashley, I'm hoping that he's going to be going to Mania as the WWE champion. So I'm assuming that he's going to come out of the Elimination Chamber victorious. Who do you think his potential opponent could be for Mania? Is there anybody that's really standing out at the moment that you think could be a credible, dare I say it, main event opponent against Bobby Lashley at Mania this year?
Well, for me, and this kind of plays into who I had picked to win the men's Royal Rumble match, which was Big E, because I felt like, you know, he kind of got the raw deal with this whole thing, because you know, when they had to kind of go to Plan B, and then, you know, Brock took the, you know, F5 Big E to win the championship, I kind of thought that Big E got a raw deal there. So and I mentioned too, we talked about Roman and Seth getting the rematch. Like, I think they're going to have a rematch at the Elimination Chamber. You know, and I think Roman will go over to, you know, kind of solidify his spot, you know, and then they had them going into Mania as a champion. So I kind of feel like, in terms of what Lashley's going to be doing at Mania, if he's the champion, and I say if because I don't think it's 100% certain that he'll be champion going into Mania, because I feel like the WWE is going to try and pull a swerve, you know, to maybe kind of spice things up. But if Bobby Lashley is the champion going into Mania, which I feel he should be, I feel like we're going to get a triple threat between Bobby Lashley, Big E, and Seth Rollins.
Interesting. Very interesting. And what about Drew? Do you think Drew deserves another title opportunity at a Mania? Of course, he won the championship in front of no fans at WrestleMania 36. And last year lost the championship to Bobby in front of, you know, 40, 50,000 people, you know, on night one of Mania.
Yeah.
So didn't get the WrestleMania moment that he was hoping for. Any chance of Drew getting his WrestleMania moment this year or anytime soon, maybe against Bobby?
I feel.
Or do you think time has gone? Do you think that ship has sailed?
I feel like if anybody deserves a Mania moment like that, it is Drew, because he should have had he should have had that 2 years ago.
Yeah,
at WrestleMania, because just to think about like something that was still a cool Mania moment in itself when he beat Brock for the championship. But it just to think, if that would have been in front of, you know, 60, 70, whatever Raymond James Stadium whole capacity would have been for WrestleMania, that would have just been an amazing moment for Drew. And unfortunately, you know, things happened the way they did. And then he kind of talked about someone getting a raw deal. You know, he kind of got it with this whole thing. I would love to see him get the Mania moment this year. I think he will, but not this year, maybe a year or two down the line. But I mean, I feel like right now it's not the right time for
They
Drew.
need to build him up again, don't they? They need to build him up and make him a credible world title contender.
Absolutely.
Right, so let's talk about the next match then, DDJ. Edge and Beth Phoenix versus The Miz and Maurice. So it's had a fun build, an interesting build. And like I say, it certainly reintroduced us to Beth Phoenix and Maurice, who have been off our screens for a little while. And Beth's been doing a lot of commentary for NXT and NXT 2.0. But firstly, I've got to say, I loved the gear. I love the matching gear. Both Edge and Beth were wearing matching gear, and Miz and Maurice as well. And they all looked absolutely amazing. Beth in particular, I think, paying homage to Luna Vachon with the veins and the kind of the makeup on one side of her face, which was absolutely fantastic. There was a lot of, to start off with, Beth chasing Maurice around the ring, which, you know, to be expected in this type of match, I suppose, while Edge and Miz traded offense inside the ring. Beth then had an exchange with Miz, and that got a really good reaction from the fans before Maurice attacked Beth with her brick-loaded handbag, and just to gain the upper hand in the process. There was a really cool double team spot with Beth catching Miz in the corner, delivering an impressive power bomb. Then you had Edge coming down with a really sweet flying elbow there. So they've been hitting lots of kind of nostalgic double team moves, from the heart attack to, you know, various others. And that was another really cool double team move from those two. They've certainly been working hard on their double team move execution there. Maurice delivers an excellent Hurricane Rana from the top rope to Edge, which I was very, very impressed by, to be honest with you. I think Maurice, even kind of being semi-retired for the last however many years, well, if she does get in the ring, she's always very entertaining and definitely surprised me with that move. But that top rope Hurricane Rana was fantastic. Like a head scissors combination before dropping Beth with the DDT. The Miz hits a skull crushing finale for a very, very close near fall on Edge there. The end of this fairly entertaining match came when Beth, she hit a double spear on the It's couple, getting them both down to the ground with that spear before Beth and Edge hit stereo glam slams, and Edge hooking the leg of the Miz for the 1, 2, 3. I thought this was a ton of fun, to be honest with you. This was never going to be, you know, 5 stars from the Tokyo Dome. It was never going to be PWI Match of the Year. It was what it was. I thought the storyline going into it, DDJ, was fun, really, really good. I thought they really got behind the storyline and the journey into this match. And I thought they delivered, to be honest with you. Like I say, Maurice, going back to the number of divas that was in the women's battle Royal Rumble, of course, she was from the Divas era, former Divas champion, of course, would never be credited as being one of the best workers or best wrestlers in the world. She'd never say that about herself, let alone anybody else. But she when the time is right, and when the stage is hers, she delivers. And Beth is an absolute, well, Beth is one of the best female workers, I think, in the history of the game, to be honest with you. Miz is a great worker, and Edge is legendary. So you got 4 really, really great performers there, and I think they pulled off, dare I say it, a surprisingly good match on Saturday evening.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I want to say first is I think you talked about Maurice. She's and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, you know, she, you know, doesn't wrestle that often, like you said, you know, or she's not as active as, you know, some of the other, you know, semi-retired divas or whatever. But I mean, like you said, when she's in center stage, she knows what to do. I mean, she's a damn good heel.
That's why they put her in there. That's why they put her in there, because she can be trusted to perform and to do what's asked of her. And she is a great heel. Yeah, she really is a great heel.
And, you know, and I think she's better than people, you know, when I say people, I say the fans, most notably the IWC, you know, give her credit for. And the same goes for the Miz. I really think I've been a Miz fan for a very long time. And I feel like, in terms of someone who should be get way more credit than he does for what he does, not only in the ring but out of the ring, I think the Miz, it fits that perfectly, because he does so much for that company, both in and out of the ring. And I'm a little bit of a hot take here. I feel that the Miz should and will be a Hall of Famer eventually.
Oh, 100%. It's got to happen, isn't it? It's got to happen.
Yeah.
And he's done it through hard work and grind and proving people wrong.
And kind of going into the match, you know.
Yeah.
No, like you said, I wasn't expecting, a 5-star classic. I wasn't expecting, Okada versus Omega. I wasn't expecting the most recent 5-star match, Cody Rhodes versus Sammy Guevara from from last week's Dynamite in that amazing ladder match. I wasn't expecting, the Bucks versus, the Lucha Brothers from All Out. I wasn't expecting anything like that. And I feel a lot of times wrestling fans always expect the best out of everybody, or they expect a 5-star match out of every single match, and just you realistically can't get that. And I think that's why a lot of, we see a lot of the hate that we do online and stuff. But I mean, I looked at this match as, I expected this to be a fun match. I expected to, see some good things, and which is what I got. I got exactly what I wanted out of this match. It wasn't like a 5-star classic, but I was entertained.
It was damn entertaining.
It was very,
damn entertaining.
I love the interactions that Beth had with the Miz. The power bombs and just and catching him and stuff. And I really liked the ending, like you talked about with the stereo glam slams. I thought that was just a great way to end the match. And for what it was, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. And call us diehard WWE fans. I don't necessarily look for stellar technical 5-star matches in all of my matches that I watch. I enjoy the entertainment. I want to be entertained. I like the story. And when it's evident that the performers, when the wrestlers, they go out there and they put in a tremendous amount of effort to entertain the fans, and it delivers, and this one delivered. And like I say, not every match needs to be a 5-star masterpiece. Just entertainment, and that sometimes you remember that more. Sometimes it is being entertained by certain moments instead of certain moves. I did enjoy that match for what it was worth. But let's talk about the final match of the evening. I don't think I've missed any, but on to the men's Royal Rumble match then, DDJ. So lots of anticipation. These type of matches, like the women's match as well, you're always wondering, are we going to get any returns, any legends, any surprise appearances? And we got one or two in this match. Certainly not as many retired or semi-retired wrestlers as in the women's match. But this one was, like I say, entertaining for various reasons, and has received a lot of a lot of conversation for all the right or all the wrong reasons from the internet wrestling community. But let's go through it. One of the big talking points straight off the bat was AJ Styles coming out number 1. And now a lot of people had AJ Styles pegged as the the person to walk away with it all and to win the Royal Rumble and to go on to WrestleMania. But coming out number 1 might have dashed a lot of them hopes, DDJ. But number 2 was Shinsuke Nakamura. Brought back a lot of memories of their feud from 2018, and of course that WrestleMania 34 match that I was at in the Dome in New Orleans. But they did have a brief exchange there, and it was good to hear the fans sing along to Nakamura's theme tune, and Pat McAfee really getting into it like he does on the announce table. Pat McAfee's just been a revelation in the commentary team on SmackDown. Austin Theory was out number 3. Robert Roode was out number 4, or is it Bob Roode nowadays? I don't know. But Robert Roode, as far as I'm concerned, but he was quickly eliminated by AJ Styles. Rich Holland came out for his Royal Rumble debut next. He was number 5. Nakamura gets eliminated once again by AJ Styles. AJ Styles on a bit of a tear in this match, actually. Montez Ford comes out number 6. Current US champion Damian Priest, number 7. Sami Zayn comes out number 8. And then there was a huge pop from the 44,000 fans when Johnny Knoxville came out straight away, goes straight after Sami Zayn before being clotheslined out of the ring by clotheslined by AJ Styles, splashed by Montez Ford, and eventually being eliminated by Sami Zayn, which got Sami Zayn quite a bit of a heat and quite a few boos from the fans. But then Zayn was quickly eliminated himself by AJ Styles, who's, like I say, having a great match so far. Angelo Dawkins comes out number 10. Then my pick going into this match, you may have seen on my Facebook feed, Omos came out number 11. He quickly eliminates both members of the Street Profits. Ricochet's out number 12, and he probably wishes that he hadn't come out at all after being chopped into oblivion by Omos. Chad Gable came out number 13. Dominic Mysterio came out number 14. We see every member of the ring gang up on Omos to try to eliminate him, and it took all of them and an AJ Styles phenomenal forearm to get the big 400-pounder 7'3" of Omos out of the ring. So my pick was gone. Happy Corbin comes out number 15 and promptly eliminates Ricochet. Ziggler comes out number 16. Sheamus comes out number 17 and watches his protege or partner Ridge Holland get eliminated before Sheamus could even enter the ring. Rick Boogs, who's been really entertaining on SmackDown recently. He comes out number 18. He eliminates Chad Gable with an impressive one-handed press slam over the top rope. We see Madcap Moss come out 19. Madcap Moss, who is the one to eventually throw out AJ Styles, and AJ Styles was in there 29 minutes, eliminated 6 people, came out number 1. I thought that was a fantastic showing from AJ Styles. Pity he couldn't go all the way, because speaking of Bobby Lashley's potential opponents for WrestleMania, I certainly like AJ Styles to be in that conversation as well, but we'll talk more about that a bit later. Riddle comes out number 20, followed by the return of two-time WWE champion. We spoke about him earlier, DDJ, Drew McIntyre, of course. He goes straight after Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin. Drew manages to eliminate both of those two individuals before destroying them on the outside even further with the steel steps. Kevin Owens is out number 21, followed by Rey Mysterio 22 and Kofi Kingston 23. And as per usual, for so many years now, Kofi Kingston has always performed the spot where he evades elimination. Tried again this time.
Yeah, he didn't do it this time.
He did it this time. He springboarded himself up onto the top rope. Kevin Owens pushed him off. As Kofi turned around in midair, he tried to catch himself on the barrier at ringside, but unfortunately the camera was right there. There was no avoiding it. Not even Kofi could kind of leap himself or get out of this situation, and it's clear as evident that both feet touched the floor. So hopefully we've seen the end of the Kofi elimination, avoiding spots in future Royal Rumbles. But there we go. Former WWE champion Big E was out next, followed by the hugely popular Bad Bunny, who had a fantastic showing at last year's WrestleMania. Massively impressive at WrestleMania. And even here, hit a tremendous flying cross body, a Canadian destroyer on Riddle, manages to eliminate both Sheamus and Dolph Ziggler. Shane O'Mac comes out next to a huge pop, number 28, and he gets rid of Kevin Owens. The crowd erupts when hometown boy Randy Orton comes out 29, who promptly hits RKOs on pretty much everybody from Big E to Otis. Even Riddle gets in on the act and does an assisted RKO to Drew McIntyre, which is absolutely fantastic and got a great response from Randy himself. He definitely approved of that one. And then we get to the number 30 spot. And who should come out but the man who lost his WWE Championship earlier on in the night, none other than Brock Lesnar. We even see a brief exchange between Riddle and Lesnar before Lesnar eliminates Orton. He pretty much destroys Bad Bunny, eliminates Riddle. He smashes Shane over the top rope, and then it was just down to the two. You had Drew and Brock in flashbacks of their feud from 2020. And of course, Drew eliminated Brock from that year's Royal Rumble before going on to beat him in that year's Performance Center WrestleMania. But it was Brock who sent Drew over the top rope and wins his second Royal Rumble, 19 years apart from the first one, and he's going on to headline this year's WrestleMania. And after what happened in his championship match with Roman coming out, interfering and costing him the title, it looks like that's possibly going to be one of our main events. But Brock Lesnar is this year's men's Royal Rumble winner. DDJ, I've spoken enough about this match. Give us your thoughts.
So I was, a couple of the things that I was shocked about was that I saw when AJ came out at number 1, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to be the Iron Man. He's somehow going to find his. I didn't think he was going to win, but I felt like he was going to be in, like, say the final four. Like, I thought he would have at least made it there. It's a shame that the Kofi spot didn't work out because I always enjoy those. I love the Johnny Knoxville, or what Johnny Knoxville did. I cannot wait to see that movie.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to go see it next week. But I mean, to me, I felt like you already had your path for Brock to get to Roman at Mania. I felt like him winning this was not the right call, and it just felt like when he came out, I think everybody knew he was going to win. I think that just kind of threw all the unpredictability out the window, and I didn't like this because I felt like they could have used this Rumble match to give someone like that could have used the rub or a push or like a bump or something. Like I thought, like, it made all the sense in the world to have Big E win, to kind of get some of his, mojo back from losing the title to Brock. They could have elevated someone like, maybe given AJ Styles, who I know doesn't have much more time left. He could have benefited from this, someone maybe like, Riddle, or just I felt like that they could have and should have gone in so many different ways rather than just giving the win to Brock, because they always talk about how Brock's a free agent on TV. He can go and do whatever he wants. Like he could just go to SmackDown and be like, you cost me my title, now I'm coming to get you and stuff. They could have went that route. Like I just felt like him getting the win here in the Rumble was really unnecessary. I was kind of shocked. One of the things that shocked me the most, because you had talked about Omos being your pick to win, and I think I mentioned to you in the group or some way, I said that I didn't think he was going to win because I felt like he wasn't ready for something like that, but I thought he was going to be the guy that was going to have that 1994 Diesel run,
the Diesel spot, the Diesel moment,
spot, or the Kane spot from 2001, or Brock from 2020. Like
and
that.
He did.
He did, but I just, he had a few, but I felt like it could have been a little bit. I felt like it should have been a little bit longer, like maybe and gotten a few more guys out. But the fact that it literally took like 6-7 guys to get him out really speaks to him. And I mean, I definitely think there's a lot of good stuff in Omos's future. Like he's definitely the arrows pointing up with him.
Yeah.
Bad Bunny had a decent showing. I mean, this is someone who, like I said with Rhonda, it's very well documented that he's a fan. Like he respects the business, he respects the history of the business. No issues with him being in it, because because he is actually someone that puts in the work. Like he takes this, seriously. I mentioned Johnny Knoxville for what I figured we'd get with what we got out of him. I kind of like that. Sammy eliminated him to kind of maybe play off, to continue that. And maybe we get I don't feel like we're done with Sammy versus Johnny Knoxville yet. I feel like there's still a little bit more to be told with that.
I think there's a WrestleMania match around the corner between those two. I don't know.
You know what? Honestly, it would not surprise me at all to see Johnny Knoxville versus Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. And there's gonna be a lot of the the wrestling fans out there, the IWC, who are going to whine and complain about it and say,
what about Bad Bunny? Do you think Bad Bunny's going to be in another WrestleMania match?
From what I've heard, I mean, the door is open for him, but I know he's got a couple of tours coming up that he's probably going to be getting ready for and stuff. And I would assume that with him, his manager and his people, his posse or whatever, are probably going to try to have him steer clear of that, because, you wouldn't want him to, go to WrestleMania to have a match and get hurt, and then he has to cancel a tour or something like that. I mean, does he appear at Mania? I wouldn't be surprised to see that, but actually wrestle, I would be shocked if he did. But like I said, going back to this thing though, I just felt like this is one of the, my least favorite Rumble matches, just because I just felt like they could have done so many things better. Like there really weren't any surprises. Again, there was rumors that Gunther and Braun Breaker were going to be like, I felt like both Rumble matches could have benefited from some sort of NXT 2.0 presence, just to give those that maybe don't necessarily watch NXT 2.0 on TV kind of like, get a chance to, be introduced to these talents that they're going to eventually be seeing on the main roster soon. And also at the same time, help drive viewership to NXT 2.0, which I know has been struggling lately with their numbers and stuff. But I just felt like Brock, they could have done without Brock being in the Rumble. Like I just felt like it could have went to somebody else, like I mentioned, Big E or something, something of that nature. But I mean, it is what it is and stuff. We're on the road to WrestleMania. Let's just see where we go.
Yeah, it just seemed to be, although I thoroughly enjoyed the show, some matches more than others. The Women's Royal Rumble, not so much. But it sounds like they used the Royal Rumble to get to the destination, which is WrestleMania. And yes, a lot of fans are not very pleased with some of the outcomes, some of the winners, some of the, how the matches ended, with, for example, Brock winning the Men's Royal Rumble, as you just mentioned. But it's a means to an end, isn't it? It's to get them to the destination and how to kind of connect all the dots, getting Brock and Roman back in the WrestleMania main event. Now, my quick question for you, and just a quick answer from you: is it a match that you're looking forward to for Mania? Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, with the main difference being Paul Heyman being with Roman compared to their other Mania encounters, and Brock being the babyface this time.
Yeah, I actually
does that spice things up for you? Does it make it different to the others? And does it make it something you're more anticipating?
Well, it does it, and like it could have been, it could have been, with Paul Heyman being here, because we've seen Brock versus Roman, be in the past many times. We saw it at WrestleMania 31. We saw it at we saw it just recently at Crown Jewel. We saw it at SummerSlam a couple of years ago. But I just think with the fact that, but the one common thing between all of those matches, except for the one that they had at Crown Jewel a couple months ago in Saudi, was the fact that Roman was the baby face, but the one that, the baby face that was being shoved down wrestling fans' throats and they were rejecting him. Now that we're seeing this Roman Reigns, who is this heel who, has been accepted by the fans, and has that wild card of Paul Heyman, it definitely puts a new spin on this story. And the fact that we saw what we saw, because one of the things going into this, is going to be Brock trying to get his hands on Paul for what happened. And I mean, I just think that there's so many new wrinkles and everything. It's just, I don't see, like I said this before, I said earlier, I feel like this is going to be the main event of night 2. This is going to be the very last match of WrestleMania weekend, because to me, it's been a great story. The Roman Reigns, since he came back almost, about a year and a half ago, has been just amazing. It's been arguably the best thing about WWE.
Let me ask you this then, DDJ, because we've seen Brock versus Roman so many times, although the dynamics are slightly different with the face and the heel transition between the two. Does it need to be a stipulation match, a gimmick match, in order for it to seem different to the casual viewer, or maybe the viewer that's seen this match 4 or 5 times before? Does it need to have a stipulation?
I don't think it does, just simply because of the fact that the dynamics of of Brock versus Roman have changed. Like, Brock is going into this as the babyface who can hold his own in a promo. The whole thing with Paul Heyman being against, Brock Lesnar and being back in the camp with Roman Reigns. I think there's so many different wrinkles, or like you mentioned before, go back to the whole thing of the dynamic changing so much in this. I don't think it needs, other than, because the only stipulation I see this match having is, being for the Universal Championship, maybe like a no disqualification type match or a no holds barred match or something like that. But I don't need to see, Brock versus Roman in a cage. I don't need to see Brock versus Roman inside Hell in a Cell. I just
Cell.
Yeah. I feel like Brock versus Roman itself, is
a big enough attraction.
With Paul Heyman is a big enough attraction where you don't really need to add anything else to it. Like I said, other than maybe make it like a no holds barred, or like a no disqualification match. That's if anything, that would be it, but nothing more than that.
Sorry, you've got me dreaming of a Hell in a Cell match between you two now, DDJ. That's it. That's all I'm going to be thinking about now. I'm going to be emailing Vince McMahon as soon as we finish talking.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. If you get through the win and he goes with it, just make sure that
I'll credit you.
You show me some credit and show me some love with that.
I will.
That happens.
I will, 100%. I'll credit you. So, on to slightly different topics based on everything we saw from the Royal Rumble. Having a look at the women's side of things now. Ronda Rousey winning the Women's Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
Is it almost a certainty that she's going to want to face Charlotte, bearing in mind that those two seemingly have unfinished business? For WrestleMania a couple of years ago at the MetLife Stadium, it was originally penciled to be Charlotte versus Ronda until Becky Lynch's popularity completely blew up. Of course, it did eventually end up being Becky versus Ronda versus Charlotte in that main event, but it wasn't quite the main event that Charlotte wanted. I know Charlotte was the final individual that Ronda eliminated on Saturday night. Do you think it's an almost certainty that these two will be in one half of the main event on Mania?
Yeah, I absolutely, and I think we will eventually see Becky versus Ronda as well. Like, I've heard, it could be anywhere. Maybe we could see that at SummerSlam, or we could say maybe see that at WrestleMania 38. At SoFi Stadium next year. But I definitely think we will see Becky versus Ronda. But yeah, I think right now your women's your two women's title matches at WrestleMania are going to be as follows. I definitely think we're going to see Ronda and Charlotte go at it. And I truly think, and this is again kind of going back to my pick to win the Women's Royal Rumble, I think we're going to see Becky versus Bianca for the Raw Women's Championship. And I think this is finally where Becky drops the title, and I think Bianca gets another WrestleMania moment, and this one
she gets payback for what happened at SummerSlam.
Exactly, and I was going to mention that as well too. So I think that finally comes full circle. So I think that's what the women's title matches are going to be.
And where does that leave Sasha Banks? Where does Sasha Banks does she feature in the title picture at all for Mania?
That's
a tough one, isn't it? Where do you
now,
put her?
Yeah, I would. It's just kind of I think with this, that we're bringing that up, I think it's just kind of a case of the right place at the wrong time.
Sure.
Because I think if Ronda's not in the equation, we're getting Charlotte versus Sasha for the title at Mania. I think if Ronda's not back, Ronda doesn't win the Rumble, Ronda's not even in. Like, she's not even talked about, whatever. She's not in the picture at all. I think we would have gotten Sasha challenging Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's Championship at Mania. But Sasha will be okay. I think she's going to hold her own, and when the time is right, I can definitely see her, back in the title picture sooner rather than later. But just, I think Mania might be a little too soon for her, because also too, I think she kind of got a little bit of a raw deal, because I know she was either sick or she was out, because originally I think she was supposed to challenge Bianca at SummerSlam, and then when all that happened, that's when Becky came in and did what she did and stuff. And I think that easily could have been Sasha, taking the title back from Bianca. Maybe we would have gotten Sasha versus Bianca. It's just kind of strange how sometimes one little thing happens and it causes this huge ripple and stuff. But I mean, Sasha will, and I mean, maybe we might see Sasha versus Charlotte at on an episode of SmackDown or something like that. But I mean, I definitely think Sasha will find her way back in the title picture. But I don't think it's going to be around Mania time.
I'm wondering now whether she might be inserted into one of those championship matches to turn one of them into a triple threat to kind of make the two matches seem different.
That could very well happen.
Yeah, I'm thinking that because she's just a main event player, isn't she? She's got to be there or thereabouts. She's got to be in the conversation when you're talking about the championships getting closer to WrestleMania. She had so much star power on Saturday night, so much presence, and she always does. But
she's
coming out
got
number one, she really does. She's got
something special. She's
got to be involved in the big matches for sure. Final question, and this is quick fire, DDJ. Final question: What was your kind of favorite and least favorite moment from this year's Royal Rumble?
For me, if just to picture a moment, like my favorite moment was Seth Rollins doing the Shield entrance. I thought that was amazing and brilliant. My least favorite was probably Brock winning the Rumble, because I felt like it was totally unnecessary.
And my favorite and least favorite, I think my least favorite, starting with that, will be the number of divas and retired or semi-retired women wrestlers in the women's Royal Battle Royal. That ruined it for me, to be honest with you. We spoke about the amount of awesome talent that could have been used, like Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai and Kaylee Ray. So yeah, the number of divas that were in the Royal Rumble ruined it for me. My favorite moment, I've got to be honest, it was that senton from Dewdrop on Becky Lynch, full force. That was great. That was great.
Yeah.
And because this is my show, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I've got to say Riddle's RKO was absolutely tremendous on Drew McIntyre in the Rumble. Absolutely loved that. But DDJ, it's been amazing having you back on the show. It's been far too long. We'll have to do this again very, very soon. But thank you for being an awesome guest. There was meant to be a whole panel, but things happened, and like I say, but just myself and DDJ, so it was absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to give you and you alone an opportunity to throw out your socials. Where can my listeners and viewers get in touch with you, find out more about you and your show, and listen to your fantastic content?
So thank you so much for having me on here. It was a blast. Like I said, I've got a lot of free time on my hands since I'm currently off work due to an injury. You can follow, if you want to reach out to me, I'm on Facebook as Dennis Day Jr. You can follow me on Twitter at Dennis W Day Jr. My show, you can catch my show Shooting Shit with my co-host, the Premier Joey K and the hot one Jay Minacho. We drop an episode once a week. It kind of fluctuated. It was Tuesday. Sometimes we drop them on Tuesday. Sometimes it's Thursdays. This week's episode should be out on Wednesday. We're trying to kind of get things back into more of a routine. We have if you go to wrestlingwithjohners.com, or you can check out it's the easiest way to get access to all of our past episodes, both on YouTube as well as wherever you get your podcast from. You can actually follow the show. You go shooting SHOOTIN SHT, where we post updates of the show. Well, that's the best place to kind of find out when the show, new episodes are up. And yeah, like I said, I'm in the Wrestling with Johners Facebook page as well too, and I'm always up to talking wrestling. Just what if you have something you want to comment on about what I said today, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to respond.
That's awesome. DDJ, like I say, it's been too long, but we're going to have to make it not so long before we have you back on the show very, very soon. With WrestleMania around the corner, I'm sure we'll be doing plenty of talk, both before, during, and after WrestleMania. So we'll definitely have to get you back on the show for around April time. But DDJ, thank you so much for being a great guest. I've really enjoyed talking Royal Rumble with you, and we'll see you again soon, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Take care.